Imagine waking up in a world with no electricity, no phones, no supermarkets, no hospitals, no roads, no police, no internet telling you how to survive. Just endless wilderness, the wind howling through giant forests, the sound of distant predators echoing across the darkness, cold rain soaking your skin, and hunger, constant hunger. This was everyday life for ancient humans. Yet somehow, against impossible odds, our ancestors survived. Not only did they survive, they conquered the planet. They crossed deserts, climbed mountains, endured ice ages, hunted enormous beasts, and built civilizations using nothing but intelligence, teamwork, and determination. Tonight, we're traveling back thousands of years into the forgotten world of human survival. A world where every single sunrise was uncertain, and every mistake could mean death. Because ancient humans didn't have modern technology. They became the technology. And the truth is, many of the survival skills they mastered are things most people today would struggle to do for even 1 week. So how did ancient humans stay alive in such a brutal world? How did they find food without grocery stores? How did they make fire without lighters? How did they survive freezing winters without heaters? How did they fight disease without medicine? And perhaps the biggest question of all, could modern humans survive if all technology disappeared tomorrow? Let's begin our journey. Long before cities existed, before written language, before farming, humans lived entirely at the mercy of nature. The earth itself was wild beyond imagination. Massive predators roamed freely across continents. Sabertotevkat stoked forests. Giant hyenas hunted in packs. Enormous bears larger than modern grizzlies wandered the mountains. Crocodiles waded beneath muddy rivers. Venomous snakes hid in tall grass. And humans? Humans were physically weak compared to most predators. We had no claws, no sarptis, no sikfur, no incredible speed. A lion could outrun us. A bear could overpower us. Even a wolf had better natural weapons. So why didn't humans disappear? Because humans developed something far more powerful, the ability to think. Ancient humans became masters of adaptation. They observed nature carefully. Every sound mattered. Every animal track told a story. Every cloud in the sky could signal danger. Their brains became survival machines. And one of the first great breakthroughs in human survival was something we now completely take for granted. Today, fire is simple. One click of a lighter, one switch on a stove. But for ancient humans, fire was almost magical. At first, humans likely discovered fire through nature itself. Lightning strikes, igniting forests. Volcanic eruptions sending flames into the night sky. Wildfires spreading across dry land. Imagine the fear. Towering flames consuming trees. Smoke choking the air. Animals fleeing in terror. But eventually, humans realized something extraordinary. Fire could protect them. Predators feared it. Cold temperatures became bearable. Darkness became less terrifying. And perhaps most importantly, food changed forever. Before fire, humans ate raw meat, roots, insects, berries, and whatever they could gather. Raw food was difficult to chew and dangerous to consume. Parasites and bacteria could kill entire groups. Cooking transformed survival. Meat became softer. Food lasted longer. More nutrients became available. Some scientists even believe cooked food helped the human brain grow larger over time. Fire became the center of human life. Families gathered around flames at night. Stories were told. Knowledge was passed from one generation to another. Fire gave humans extra hours after sunset, allowing communication, planning, and bonding. In many ways, civilization itself may have started around ancient campfires. But making fire was incredibly difficult. There were no matches. Ancient humans experimented with friction, striking stones together, and carefully preserving flames for as long as possible. In some groups, keeping the fire alive became a sacred responsibility. If the flame died during freezing weather, survival became uncertain. Now, imagine trying to survive winter without modern clothing. No jackets, no boots, no insulated homes. just animal skins and handmade shelters. The Ice Age was one of the greatest tests humanity ever faced. Huge parts of Earth became frozen wastelands. Temperatures dropped far below freezing. Snow covered massive regions for months. Food became scarce. Rivers froze solid. Yet humans survived. How? Through creativity. Ancient people used animal hides to trap body heat. Bones became sewing tools. Tendons from animals acted as thread. For clothing was carefully layered for warmth. They also learned how to build shelters suited for different environments. In forests, branches and leaves formed protective huts. In snowy regions, thick animal skins insulated temporary homes. In open plains, humans built structures using bones from giant animals like mammoths. Imagine an entire shelter made from mammoth bones and covered with hides. That wasn't fantasy, that was survival. And survival depended heavily on hunting. Ancient hunting was unbelievably dangerous. Today, people hunt with rifles, vehicles, drones, and advanced equipment. Ancient humans hunted face to face. A single mistake could mean being crushed, gored, trampled, or torn apart. Yet humans developed incredible strategies. They hunted in groups, communicating silently through gestures and sounds. Cooperation became humanity's secret weapon. Some hunters distracted animals, while others attacked from the sides. Spears allowed humans to strike from safer distances. Over time, tools improved dramatically. Stone tools were among the earliest technologies humans created. Simple rocks became sharpened blades. These tools cut meat, scraped hides, carved wood, and shaped weapons. The creation of tools separated humans from nearly every other species. Because once humans learned how to improve tools, progress accelerated. Sharp stones became axes. Axes became spears. Spears evolved into bows and arrows. Each invention increased humanity's chance of survival. But hunting large animals wasn't always successful. Sometimes hunters returned empty-handed after days of exhausting effort. And hunger became one of the greatest enemies ancient humans ever faced. Modern people rarely experience true starvation. Ancient humans knew it intimately. There were periods when entire groups survived on tiny amounts of food. Roots dug from frozen soil, bitter plants, small rodents, insects. Anything edible became valuable. This forced humans to become experts in understanding nature. They memorized which berries were poisonous, which plants healed wounds, which seasons brought migration patterns. Knowledge meant survival, and this knowledge was not written in books. It lived in memory. Elders became walking libraries. They taught younger generations how to track animals, predict weather, build tools, and avoid danger. If knowledge disappeared, survival became harder. That's why storytelling was so important. Around fires at night, ancient humans shared lessons hidden inside stories. Tales about dangerous rivers, stories warning children about predators, myths teaching survival skills. Entertainment and survival became connected. But nature remained ruthless. Storms could destroy shelters instantly. Floods swept away camps. Droughts killed animals and dried up water sources. Ancient humans constantly moved. They followed seasons, migrating animals, and fresh water. Some groups traveled enormous distances over generations, eventually spreading across Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia, and eventually the Americas. Think about that for a moment. Humans crossed entire continents without GPS, without maps, without engines. Only memory, observation, and instinct. The stars became guides. Ancient people studied the night sky carefully. They learned patterns of constellations and seasonal changes. The movement of the sun helped them navigate unfamiliar land. Nature itself became their compass. And despite all the hardships, humans continued evolving culturally. Art appeared. Deep inside ancient caves, humans painted animals, hunts, and mysterious symbols. Some of these paintings still survive today, thousands of years later. Why did they create art during such difficult lives? Because survival alone was never enough. Humans needed meaning. Even in harsh conditions, people laughed, loved, mourned, danced, and dreamed. Ancient burial sites reveal something deeply emotional about our ancestors. They cared for one another. Some skeletons discovered by archaeologists belong to injured individuals who survived many years despite disabilities. That means others helped feed and protect them. Compassion existed even in the brutal ancient world. Human survival wasn't built only on strength. It was built on cooperation. And that cooperation would eventually lead humanity toward one of the biggest revolutions in history. The moment humans stopped wandering and began building permanent settlements. But that transformation would change everything forever. Because once humans discovered farming, the entire story of survival changed. And with it came new dangers humanity had never faced before. For thousands upon thousands of years, ancient humans lived as nomads. They moved constantly, following animals, searching for water, escaping harsh weather, trying to stay alive one season at a time. But eventually, something happened that completely transformed human history forever. Humans discovered they could grow food. And that single discovery changed the world more than almost anything else in history. At first, it probably happened by accident. Imagine ancient people gathering wild grains near their camps. Some seeds fall into the soil. Rain arrives. Months later, new plants begin growing in the same place. Over time, humans noticed patterns. Seeds could become food. And once people understood this, survival no longer depended entirely on hunting. This was the birth of agriculture, one of the greatest turning points in human existence. Before farming, humans had to travel constantly because food sources disappeared quickly. But farming allowed people to remain in one place for longer periods. Villages slowly appeared. Simple shelters turned into permanent homes. Families began living together in larger communities. Children no longer had to travel endless distances every season. For the first time in history, humans started building something stable. But farming was not easy. Without machines, every task required exhausting labor. Ancient farmers used sticks, stone tools, and animal bones to dig into the earth. They planted seeds by hand beneath the burning sun. They carried water manually from rivers and streams. And there was no guarantee crops would survive. A single drought could destroy everything. Floods could wipe out entire harvests. Insects could consume months of work. Imagine depending completely on a field of crops, knowing your family might starve if the rains never came. That fear shaped ancient civilization. It also explains why many ancient cultures worshipped nature so deeply. Rain became sacred. Rivers became symbols of life. The sun itself was viewed almost like a divine force, because survival depended on forces humans could not control. As farming improved, humans learned to domesticate animals. Instead of chasing wild creatures endlessly across the wilderness, people began raising them near villages. Dogs were likely among the first companions. At first, wolves may have approached human camps searching for scraps. Over generations, some wolves became less aggressive and more cooperative. Humans and dogs formed one of the greatest partnerships in history. Dogs helped guard camps. They warned humans about predators. They assisted during hunts. Eventually, humans domesticated goats, sheep, pigs, and cattle. Animals became sources of meat, milk, clothing, transportation, and protection. This changed survival dramatically, but it also created new problems. Living close together with animals increased disease. Ancient humans had no understanding of bacteria or viruses. They didn't know microscopic organisms could spread illness. When sickness appeared, it often felt mysterious and terrifying. Entire villages could become infected. Without medicine, survival depended on natural remedies and luck. Ancient healers studied plants carefully. Through generations of trial and error, humans discovered that certain herbs reduced pain, treated wounds, or eased fevers. Some remedies worked surprisingly well. Others were dangerous. But knowledge slowly accumulated, and survival continued. As villages grew larger, humans faced another challenge. In small nomadic groups, resources were shared more directly. But permanent settlements created ownership. Fields belonged to families. Animals became valuable property. Stored food attracted thieves. For the first time, humans began fighting over land and wealth on a larger scale. Walls appeared around villages. Weapons became more advanced. Warriors emerged. Ancient survival no longer meant fighting only nature. Now humans also fought each other. And yet, despite violence, civilization kept expanding. People developed new skills. Some became farmers. Others became tool makers. Some specialized in pottery, weaving, fishing, or construction. Human society became more organized and complex. Trade networks slowly formed between distant communities. Imagine two villages separated by hundreds of miles. One village had excellent stone for making sharp tools. Another had valuable salt or rare shells. Over time, humans began exchanging goods. Trade routes were born. Long before money existed, ancient people traded items directly. Animal skins for grain, tools for pottery, salt for dried meat. These exchanges connected cultures across enormous distances. Ideas traveled along with goods. One village might discover a better farming method. Another might invent stronger tools. Slowly, human knowledge spread across regions. This was one of humanity's greatest strengths. Unlike many animals, humans shared information across generations and communities. Every invention made survival easier. And one invention changed civilization forever: the wheel. Today, wheels are everywhere, so common we barely notice them. But imagine the ancient world before wheels existed. Every heavy object had to be dragged manually. Transporting materials over long distances required enormous effort. The invention of the wheel transformed movement and trade. Carts could carry supplies. Farmers transported harvests more efficiently. Communities became more connected. Human civilization accelerated. At the same time, ancient builders achieved astonishing feats without modern machinery. Think about enormous stone monuments built thousands of years ago. Massive structures aligned with the stars. Giant temples carved by hand. Entire cities constructed using primitive tools. How did ancient humans accomplish such impossible tasks? Through teamwork, patience, and extraordinary planning. Thousands of workers transported giant stones using ropes, wooden sleds, ramps, and pure human effort. No crans, no engines, no electricity, just determination. And while civilizations expanded, ordinary daily survival remained difficult. Ancient homes were dark and smoky. Fires burned indoors for cooking and warmth. During winter, freezing winds entered through cracks in walls. During summer, insects and disease spread rapidly. Water itself could become deadly. Without plumbing or purification systems, contaminated water caused terrible illness. Ancient humans often settled near rivers because fresh water was essential, but rivers also flooded unpredictably. Floods could destroy entire communities overnight. Still, people adapted. Humans always adapted. Ancient people developed irrigation systems to direct water toward crops. They dug canals by hand. Some civilizations created underground water systems that stretched for miles. Others mastered survival in deserts. Imagine living where temperatures scorch the earth during the day and freeze at night. Ancient desert travelers survived by understanding the landscape deeply. They memorized hidden water sources and traveled according to the stars. Clothing protected them from sun exposure while conserving moisture. Every environment forced humans to evolve new survival techniques. In icy northern regions, people created insulated shelters from snow itself. In tropical forests, humans learned which plants provided food, poison, or medicine. Nature became a giant classroom, and humans became its most determined students. One of the most powerful survival tools humans developed was communication. Language transformed everything. With language, humans could organize hunts, share warnings, teach survival skills, and preserve history. Complex societies became possible because humans could cooperate on a massive scale. Think about this carefully. A single human alone is vulnerable, but groups working together become incredibly powerful. Ancient survival depended less on individual strength and more on teamwork. A hunter depended on toolmakers. Toolmakers depended on farmers. Farmers depended on builders. Civilization itself became humanity's greatest survival strategy. But as populations increased, new dangers appeared. When crops failed in large farming societies, disaster followed quickly. Entire populations depended on successful harvests. If drought lasted too long or weather patterns changed unexpectedly, starvation spread rapidly. History is filled with civilizations weakened or destroyed by environmental collapse. Some ancient societies disappeared after years of drought. Others collapsed because forests were destroyed faster than nature could recover. Even thousands of years ago, humans were already shaping the environment around them. And sometimes, nature pushed back. Earthquakes leveled cities. Volcanoes buried settlements beneath ash. Massive storms destroyed coastlines. Ancient humans could not predict disasters scientifically, but they watched for signs. Changes in animal behavior. Strange cloud formation. Sudden movements in the earth. Observation became essential. And despite endless hardships, humans continued searching for better ways to survive. Metalworking emerged. At first, humans discovered soft metals like copper. Later came bronze, stronger and more durable. Eventually, iron transformed civilization completely. Iron tools cut deeper into soil. Iron weapons changed warfare. Iron technology spread across continents. Each advancement increased human power over nature. But survival was still never guaranteed. Imagine living in a world where a small infection could kill you. A broken bone might end your life. Childbirth was extremely dangerous. Storms destroyed crops. Predators still attacked isolated travelers. Ancient humans lived with uncertainty every single day. Yet perhaps that uncertainty made them mentally stronger. They understood something modern society often forgets. Survival requires resilience. Ancient people could not simply give up because conditions became difficult. Every challenge demanded adaptation. And slowly, over thousands of years, humanity transformed from small wandering tribes into mighty civilizations. But hidden beneath the rise of cities and empires remained the same ancient instincts that once helped humans survive in caves and forests. The instinct to protect family. The instinct to cooperate. The instinct to endure hardship. Those instincts still exist inside us today. Because modern humans may use smartphones and satellites. But deep inside, we are still descendants of survivors who once faced the wild world with nothing except courage, intelligence, and each other. Because survival wasn't only about food and shelter. Ancient humans also had to battle fear, isolation, deadly weather, terrifying predators, and the mysteries of a world they barely understood. And some of their survival methods were far more ingenious than most people realize. Nightfall in the ancient world was terrifying. Today, darkness is almost meaningless. With a single switch, modern cities explode with light. Streets glow all night. Homes remain bright and warm. Phones illuminate our faces even in complete darkness. But ancient humans knew true darkness. The kind of darkness that swallowed entire forests. The kind where every strange sound could mean death. Imagine sitting beside a small fire deep in the wilderness thousands of years ago. Beyond the edge of the flames, you hear movement in the trees. Low growls echoing through the night. Maybe it's a wolf pack. Maybe it's a giant cat. Maybe something worse. And once the fire dies, you are no longer the hunter. You become prey. Ancient humans lived with constant danger surrounding them from every direction. Fear was not occasional. Fear was survival itself. But over generations, humans learned how to turn fear into awareness. Every sound mattered. A sudden silence among birds could signal a predator nearby. Changes in wind direction carried scents through the forest. Animal tracks revealed hidden movement across the land. Ancient hunters became experts at reading the environment. The wilderness spoke constantly. Humans simply learned how to listen. And one of the greatest survival abilities ancient people mastered was patience. Modern life trains people to expect speed. Fast food, fast internet, instant answers. Ancient survival moved differently. Hunters sometimes tracked animals for days without success. Fishing required waiting quietly for hours. Building tools demanded careful craftsmanship. Even starting a fire could take enormous effort. Patience wasn't a personality trait. It was life-saving discipline. Some ancient hunting strategies were astonishingly intelligent. Humans discovered that they did not need to overpower giant animals directly. Instead, they used endurance and teamwork. Unlike many predators, humans can sweat efficiently. This allowed ancient hunters to pursue animals over long distances under the hot sun. While faster animals eventually became exhausted, humans continued moving steadily. This technique, sometimes called persistence hunting, may have allowed ancient people to bring down animals much larger and stronger than themselves. Imagine chasing prey across open land for hours, sometimes an entire day, until the animal collapses from exhaustion. That level of endurance required incredible physical and mental strength. Ancient humans were far tougher than most modern people realize. Daily life itself demanded strength. There were no machines carrying supplies, no vehicles transporting goods. Water had to be collected manually. Firewood required chopping and hauling. Shelter construction involved lifting heavy materials by hand. Even children learned survival responsibilities early. Young members of the group gathered berries, collected wood, watched for danger, and learned critical skills from elders. Everyone contributed, because in the ancient world, survival was a shared responsibility. And ancient humans faced something modern society rarely experiences: true isolation. Imagine getting separated from your group in a massive wilderness with no roads, no maps, and no communication technology. No one could call for help. No rescue helicopters existed. Many ancient travelers disappeared forever. That's why tribes and communities became deeply important emotionally as well as practically. Humans survived together. Loneliness itself could become dangerous. Groups provided protection, knowledge, and emotional support during hard times. Shared stories around campfires helped reduce fear and strengthen unity. Even laughter became survival. Imagine enduring freezing winters, hunger, exhaustion, and constant danger without moments of joy. Ancient people understood the importance of human connection. Archaeologists have found evidence of music dating back tens of thousands of years. Bone flutes carved by ancient hands reveal something remarkable. Even during brutal conditions, humans still created beauty. Music, art, storytelling, dancing. These things helped ancient communities stay emotionally strong. Survival was never only physical. It was psychological too. And perhaps one of the hardest psychological challenges ancient humans faced was uncertainty. Modern people usually know where their next meal is coming from. Ancient humans often did not. Some years were generous. Animals were plentiful. Crops grew successfully. Rivers provided fresh water. Other years were disasters. Extreme winters killed game. Drought destroyed harvests. Disease spread rapidly. Ancient humans could not rely on guaranteed stability. This uncertainty forced them to become highly adaptable. If one food source disappeared, they searched for another. If weather changed, they migrated. If danger increased, they altered their strategies. Adaptation became humanity's greatest survival weapon. And nowhere was adaptation more impressive than in extreme environments. Take the Arctic regions, for example. Ancient humans survived freezing temperatures that would kill unprepared modern people within hours. How? By understanding insulation. Animal fur trapped heat effectively. Snow shelters blocked icy winds surprisingly well. High-fat diets helped maintain body warmth. Nothing was wasted. Animal bones became tools. Skins became clothing. Fat became fuel for lamps and cooking. Ancient survival depended on using every available resource. In deserts, survival required completely different knowledge. Water conservation became critical. Travelers learned to move during cooler hours and rest during extreme heat. Clothing protected skin from sunlight while reducing moisture loss. People memorized hidden wells, seasonal rivers, and safe routes across deadly terrain. And in dense jungles, ancient humans faced another terrifying challenge. Mosquitoes carried deadly illnesses. Poisonous insects and snakes hid everywhere. Thick vegetation made movement exhausting. Yet humans still adapted. They discovered medicinal plants, developed protective shelters, and learned which areas were safest to travel through. Nature constantly tested humanity, and humanity kept learning. But ancient survival was not only about defending against nature. Sometimes humans learned to work with it. One incredible example was the domestication of fire landscapes. Ancient people intentionally controlled small fires to shape environments around them. Controlled burning cleared dangerous undergrowth, encouraged growth of useful plants, and attracted grazing animals for hunting. Humans were already altering ecosystems thousands of years before modern industry existed. And perhaps one of the greatest ancient technologies was something invisible. Today, Information is stored in phones and computers. Ancient humans stored knowledge in their minds. Entire histories, navigation routes, survival techniques, medicinal knowledge, and spiritual traditions were memorized and passed down orally through generations. Some individuals became living archives. Imagine memorizing thousands of details about plants, stars, seasons, animal behavior, and geography without writing anything down. Ancient memory skills were extraordinary, and because survival depended on accurate knowledge, storytelling became highly sophisticated. Stories entertained people, but they also carried hidden lessons. A tale about spirits near a river might actually warn children about dangerous currents. Legends about certain forests could preserve information about predators or poisonous plants. Mythology and survival often blended together. And then there was weather. Modern forecasts allow people to prepare for storms days in advance. Ancient humans had only observation. Cloud patterns, wind direction, animal behavior. A sudden storm could become catastrophic. Lightning ignited fires. Flash floods swept away camps. Freezing temperatures killed exposed travelers. Some ancient groups survived by building seasonal migration patterns around climate changes. Others stored food carefully during productive months. Preparation became essential. Humans also learned preservation techniques long before refrigeration existed. Meat was dried in the sun or smoked over fires. Salt preserved food for long journeys. Certain fruits and plants were stored underground to survive winter. Ancient people constantly thought ahead, because failing to prepare could mean starvation later. And despite all these hardships, ancient humans still explored the unknown. They crossed oceans using primitive boats. They climbed dangerous mountains. They entered unfamiliar territories filled with unpredictable threats. Curiosity pushed humanity forward. Think about the courage required to sail into open water without modern navigation. No engines, no radar, no weather satellites. Only stars, winds, and instinct. Yet humans reached distant islands and continents through astonishing determination. That same determination helped humanity survive countless disasters across history. Ice ages, massive droughts, volcanic eruptions, deadly epidemics. Again and again, humans adapted. And maybe that's the greatest lesson ancient survival teaches us. Human beings are far more resilient than we think. Modern technology makes life easier, but the core survival instincts inside humanity were built long before electricity, machines, or digital screens existed. The ability to cooperate, to learn, to adapt, to endure suffering, to hope during uncertainty. Those traits carried humanity through the harshest environments on Earth. And if ancient humans could see the modern world today, giant cities glowing at night, airplanes crossing oceans, devices connecting billions instantly, they would probably see it as magic. But the truth is, every modern invention began with ancient survivors sitting around fires, trying to solve problems using creativity and courage. The modern world was built by descendants of people who once survived storms with nothing but animal skins, stone tools, and determination. By the time ancient humans began forming larger civilizations, something incredible had happened. Humanity had transformed from scattered groups of vulnerable survivors into builders of worlds. Cities rose from empty land. Trade routes stretched across continents. Knowledge spread from one generation to another. But underneath all of civilization's growth remained the same ancient survival skills that kept humanity alive from the very beginning. And many of those skills are almost forgotten today. Imagine this for a moment. If electricity vanished tomorrow, if supermarkets closed, if phones stopped working, how many modern people would truly know how to survive? How many could make fire from scratch? Find clean drinking water in the wilderness? Build shelter before nightfall? Identify edible plants without poisoning themselves? Ancient humans mastered these abilities because they had no choice. Nature forced them to become resourceful. And one of the most important forgotten survival skills was observation. Ancient people noticed details modern humans often ignore completely. They watched bird migrations to predict seasonal changes. They studied insect behavior before storms. They understood the movement of animals and the rhythms of rivers. The environment constantly provided clues. For example, experienced trackers could identify an animal simply from footprints pressed into dirt. Broken branches, disturbed grass, or scattered feathers revealed hidden activity nearby. To ancient humans, the land itself was alive with information, and survival often depended on reading those signs correctly. Another forgotten skill was navigation without technology. Today, most people depend entirely on GPS. Ancient travelers used the stars. They memorized constellations and seasonal patterns in the night sky. During the day, they studied the position of the sun, wind direction, mountain shapes, and river flow. Some indigenous cultures developed astonishing navigation abilities that modern scientists still admire. Certain ocean travelers crossed enormous stretches of water using only waves, stars, and natural patterns. Think about how extraordinary that is. Navigating across vast oceans without maps or engines. Pure human awareness. Ancient humans also possessed incredible practical engineering skills. Without calculators or computers, they built structures aligned perfectly with astronomical events. Some ancient monuments still confuse researchers because of their precision. Huge stones weighing tons were transported across long distances without modern machines. How? Through planning, teamwork, physics, and patience. Ancient builders understood leverage, balance, and force through experience rather than textbooks. And perhaps one of humanity's greatest forgotten strengths was repair culture. Modern society often replaces broken objects quickly. Ancient humans repaired everything. Clothing was stitched repeatedly. Tools were sharpened and reshaped. Containers were patched instead of discarded. Nothing useful was wasted. Resources were too valuable. That mindset created resilience. People learned how things worked because they constantly repaired and maintained them. Today, many modern tools are designed to be replaced. Ancient survival required understanding. Even cooking demanded remarkable skill. Without refrigerators, microwaves, or packaged meals, every meal involved effort. Grain had to be ground manually. Water carried from distant sources. Fires maintained carefully. Food preservation became an art. Smoking meat, drying fish, fermenting vegetables, storing grains safely away from insects and moisture. Ancient communities planned months ahead because winter or drought could arrive unexpectedly. And while modern people often think ancient humans were primitive, many ancient survival techniques were surprisingly advanced. Some ancient societies developed underground cooling systems that kept food fresh in hot climates. Others created irrigation networks stretching for miles across dry land. Certain civilizations understood astronomy so accurately they could predict seasonal cycles with remarkable precision. All of this happened without computers, without electricity, without modern industry. Human intelligence alone made it possible. But ancient survival also required emotional strength. Life was unpredictable and often heartbreaking. Children sometimes died young. Disease spread quickly. Natural disasters destroyed homes and crops. Wars separated families. Yet humans continued rebuilding again and again. That resilience shaped civilization. And perhaps ancient people appreciated survival differently than modern society does. Today, many comforts are automatic. Turn a faucet, water appears. Press a button, heat arrives. Open a store, food is waiting. Ancient humans understood how fragile survival really was. Every meal represented labor. Every shelter represented effort. Every successful harvest represented hope. That awareness created deep respect for nature. The changing seasons were not background scenery. They determined life itself. Spring meant opportunity. Summer meant labor. Autumn meant preparation. Winter meant endurance. Humans lived in direct connection with the natural world. And because of this connection, ancient communities often developed strong spiritual beliefs centered around nature, ancestors, and survival. Storms became symbols of power. The sun represented life. Rivers represented renewal. Many rituals existed not only for religion, but also for unity and emotional survival. Shared ceremonies strengthened communities during difficult times. Humans needed purpose as much as food. And one thing ancient humans understood clearly was this: no one survives alone forever. Cooperation remained humanity's greatest survival advantage across history. Groups hunted together, built together, defended each other, shared knowledge. Even the strongest individual became vulnerable in isolation. This is one reason humans eventually dominated the planet. Not because we were physically strongest, but because we worked together better than almost any other species. And over thousands of years, survival knowledge accumulated layer by layer. Stone tools became metal tools. Simple shelters became cities. Campfires became civilizations. Human progress was slow, difficult, and filled with struggle. But every generation passed something valuable forward. A better farming method, a stronger weapon, a safer route, a medicinal plant discovery. Civilization itself became a giant collection of survival lessons. And yet, despite all modern advancements, ancient survival instincts still remain inside us. During disasters, humans naturally cooperate. Communities form quickly during emergencies. People protect families, gather resources, and search for safety. Those ancient instincts never disappeared. They were built into humanity through thousands of years of hardship. In many ways, modern humans are still ancient humans wearing modern clothes. Our technology changed, but our survival instincts remain deeply connected to the past. And maybe that is why stories about ancient survival fascinate us so much. Because somewhere deep inside, we recognize those struggles. The fear of uncertainty, the need for connection, the determination to survive difficult times. These experiences connect modern people to ancestors who lived thousands of years ago. And perhaps the biggest lesson ancient humans teach us is this: human beings are far more capable than they realize. Ancient people survived ice ages, predators, famine, disease, and brutal environments without modern technology. Not because they were superhuman, but because they adapted. They learned continuously. They cooperated. They stayed resilient even when conditions became harsh. That same potential still exists today. And maybe the modern world sometimes makes people forget how strong humans truly are. Because comfort can hide capability. Ancient humans didn't survive because life was easy. They survived because they refused to stop adapting. And in the end, every modern city, every invention, every piece of technology traces back to those early survivors who once sat around fires staring into the darkness, trying to find a way to make tomorrow possible. The world we know today was built by people who had almost nothing, except courage, intelligence, patience, and hope. And perhaps that is the greatest survival story ever told.